Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back to World of Tanks Blitz. Today I'm going to do a review on this thing, which is the Predator Ultramarine. And it is one of the two Halloween tanks for the 2017 Halloween event, which is the Warhammer 40,000 Macrag's Thunder, or however you pronounce Macrag. I don't know. I'm going to pronounce it Macrag. Because it sounds, I don't know. But this is one of the two tanks that you can get. It is the heavy tank, because you get a heavy tank and the tank destroyer, you get the Predator and the Vindicator Ultramarine. That's the Blaze. And out of the two tanks, the Predator is definitely the better one, in my opinion, for many different reasons. I think this thing looks better. Most certainly. This thing is certainly the more imposing and the better looking of the two, but in terms of functionality, this is definitely the better one. So you get a choice of camouflages if you unlock the tanks, and then you get the camos afterwards. So you've got the standard blue one, which is this one, which is the Ultramarines camouflage, and as you can see, it's got various writing. It's got these like lettering, or well, a piece of letter with a stamp on it. You have the Imperial Eagle, you have Ultramarines and the Ultramarine symbol, and it's in a nice blue. And then for the other one, you've got the Dark Angels, which changes the name to Predator DA rather than Predator UM, and well, it gets rid of the Ultramarines there. It replaces it with the sword and wings. That's what I was trying to say. It adds yet more stamps and pieces of writing, and it gives it a nice green. So I've mounted that as summer, and then you've got the Imperial Fists of the Ultramarines. I don't play Warhammer, so I have no idea what any of this stuff is. But it changes it to the name of the Predator IF, Imperial Fists. On the front, you of course get the symbol of a fist, and the Imperial's fist logo. And it changes it to a nice yellow. And of course it changes the emblems on the tank to a fist, rather than to a sword and wings, or indeed the symbol of the Ultramarines. What is that? That's it's a Greek letter, isn't it? It's a Greek letter for you, maybe. But anyway, enough about that. So, looking at it, 59% protection, 59% firepower, 59% shot effectiveness, and 25% maneuverability, compared to one of my favourite heavy tanks, the Tiger 1, which has got 50% protection, 50% firepower, 71% shot effectiveness, and 36% maneuverability. And that's just a basic stats look. And one extra thing to note is the size of this thing. It is a huge thing. There is the Tiger. There is the Tiger P. There is the Predator. It's a gigantic thing. And for even more comparison, here's the Mutant. And the Mutant's a very large tank. I think this thing is actually bigger than the Mutant, certainly wider. And it has 4 exhausts, just because exhausts. But enough about that. We've dawdled on for far too long. So looking at it, it has got 1320 HP, which is not a lot, compared to the Tiger's 1500, or 1450. It gets 75 with the extra hit points. And compared to the Mutant's 1300, and the Tiger P's got the same as the Tiger. The IS-2, that's got 1230. Tankenstein has got, what is it, 1420 with the increased hit points, which brings it to about 1350 without the upgraded hit points. VK 1450. So yeah, it has got a lowish HP pool for a tier 7 heavy tank. And it also doesn't have that great armour if you look at it. However, upon saying that, it is better than, surprisingly, not the Tankenstein. Amazingly, the Tankenstein's actually got better armour. 200 frontal hull, 150 frontal turret, compared to this thing, which has got 130 at the front of the hull and 150 on the turret. So it's got the same turret armour, but a worse hull armour. And indeed, compared to the Tiger P's 200 and 100. and it's definitely not as good as the mutants' frontal armour. So yeah, it's got a bit of a funny armour. 130 frontal hull, 75 side, 45 rear, 150 frontal turret, 35 side, 65 rear. And the 65 rear is probably due to partly this. Maybe. But yeah, the armour is a very weird thing. It has got some decent sloping at the front, but this bit is the lower glacis, and that is flat. That is a flat 130 plate. Anything will go through that. 1375 can get through it from the front, and that only has 144 penetration. This thing could almost get through it. In fact, it can, sorry, because this thing has got better penetration. Of course it does. That has 150, so even that can get through it. It's got a very, very low lower glacis, and you can try and angle it, but if you over-angle it, you expose this side, and this side is very, very weak. Something to note, however, about the armour profile is that you do have these side gun sponsons, I guess, and what they can do is, I guess, in Warhammer they can retract into the hull, and this folds down, because it's like a hatch. Or a flap to make it slightly more streamlined. But in Tanks Blitz it doesn't do that, obviously, but something to note, these aren't hit point boxes. These aren't hit boxes, rather. In the same way as the Heavy Tank Mark 1 for the 100 Years of Tanks, the side sponsons on that weren't hit boxes. This machine gun here and this machine gun here aren't hit boxes. The shells will go right through them, obstacles will go right through them. Otherwise it'd be silly, because you're far too big to fit down anything, really. But yeah, so the armour is a bit hit and miss, generally mostly miss, but it can give you some bounces if they hit the upper glacis, because it is sloped, obviously. But then they can just get you through the drive wheel. If they get you flat on, they can go right through that lower glacis. The sides are pretty useless. You can try and side scrape, but not really, and it's a bit meh. And it's also not the most manoeuvrable thing. Weighs 48 tons with a 620 horsepower engine. Means it has got a 32 km/h speed limit, only a 24.5 traverse speed, and a 37.33 turret traverse speed. Now the turret traverse is good. That's very good turret traverse. That's very quick compared to the Tiger, which has got a 24 degrees per second hull traverse. So it's got a very, very quick turret traverse. Hull traverse, however, it's sluggish. The top speed isn't that great, 32. I mean, the Tiger P can go 35. The Tiger 1 can go, what, 45, 44? Yeah. So yeah, it's really not very quick at, well, moving. It's pretty immobile, pretty sluggish, and you can see that when you play it. It's a pretty sluggish thing. As for the engine, only has a 10% chance of foreign impact, so not too bad. It's the Quad Mark II ATCR engine, so yeah, very low chance of foreign impact, which is good, less fires. 620 horsepower, obviously, yeah. As for the turret, it's the Predator Destructor turret. 37.33 degrees per second, that's very quick. It's got a decent view range, 269.7 when you give it coated optics. As for the suspension Predator, yeah, 68-ton limit, not too bad. But now we come to the gun, and the gun is definitely the best bit about the tank. It is an 80mm autocannon Mark 4B, and it's a good gun. It's an 80mm, which is, I think it's the first 80mm that we've seen, and of course it is a magazine. It's one of the first premium tanks which has got a magazine, and it's a good gun. I do like it. I think it is very good. It has 3 shells in the magazine. It has a 1.5 second shell reload speed, which means that in 4.5 seconds you can do 180, about 500 damage, maybe. No, maybe 80, 162. Yeah, about 500 and something damage in just 4.5 seconds, which is pretty large amount of damage, substantial amount of damage to do in one shot, and you only have an 11.75 second reload, which goes quicker than you think. There's no other heavy tanks at tier 7 which have got an auto-loading gun like this. What's French AMX M445, yeah, it's not until the 50-100 that you get auto-loaders. So yeah, it's the first auto-loading heavy tank that we've got, and indeed the first auto-loading heavy at tier 7. And yeah, so it's got a good... It's got 3 shells in the magazine. It's got good shell reload speed and a good magazine load speed. It has got not that bad penetration. 165 with AP, 210 with APCR, and 38 with high explosive. So yeah, high explosive is pretty crap. But it has got good otherwise penetration with its other shells. It does 180 average damage with standard AP, 145 with APCR, and 250 with HE. It's got a very good, very accurate, well, yeah, it's very accurate, 0.33 accuracy, 4.5 second aim time, and yeah, it's an overall very nice gun. It's very good to use, very fun, and yeah. So, moving on to the ammunition, it carries 100 rounds, which is enough to get you through any battle, so you can mess around with shells as much as you want, you know, however much APCR, HE and AP that you want. As for provisions, you've of course got standard and improved fuel for 3 and 10% respectively to engine power and turret traverse. Then you've got tinned food and field rations for 3 and 10% respectively to crew mastery, because this is in the hybrid nation tech tree, so you get this as your food. And then you've got protective kit, 15% to protection of crew from injuries, 10% speed and module repair, 20% fire protection, and 10% ammo and fuel tank durability. Then you've got consumables, you've got your standard repair first aid fire extinguisher, then you've got engine power boost, 20% engine power for 15 seconds with a 75-second cooldown. No adrenaline, because it is an autoloader, a magazine-fed weapon, so adrenaline doesn't really work on them. And then you've just got the multi-purpose restoration pack, which is them 3 rolled into 1. And yeah, those are the basic stats for it. As for the equipment loadout, you've got improved vents or calibrated shells. I would suggest improved vents, just for the overall well-being of your crew. The better penetration is nice to get it up to almost the same amount as a 128, as a 122, but I think improved vents is going to be more useful. Then you've got enhanced cabin or protected modules, and I believe they're going to change this in the future, but for now, how it stands, protected modules is better for the extra protection of the engine, transmission and ammo rack, and the extra suspension and fuel tank durability. Then definitely coated optics, because the size of this thing means that Caminet is useless on it, basically. It has very bad camo rating, so you may as well go for coated optics, get 24.5 meters extra view range, which is very good. Then you don't really need the enhanced gun lane drive, because it's got a pretty quick 4.5 second aim time, so I would say supercharge. Then I would say improved assembly, because yeah, it's not a lot of hit points, so you'll probably want to go with improved assembly for the better HP. Enhanced armor isn't really going to help, so yeah. Then definitely improved control for the better traverse speed, better track traverse, because that's going to be very useful. Then you don't really need refined guns, so I would say vertical stabilizers, just for the extra accuracy whilst turning and doing turret traverse, because things will try and get around you because you're huge. You also don't have very good gun depression. That's something to note. The gun depression is very bad on this thing because it's so tall. Because if you look at it, you have the Tiger 1, which just sits about there, just about in line with that wall. Then you got the Predator, which comes in line, well actually no, it's taller than this wall. So yeah, that's a big height difference, and there's not really much gun depression that you can get your gun down, so any little things like 1375s, they're going to easily run around you, they'll drive right up next to you, and there's nothing you can do about it, because you can't push them out of the way, and you can't shoot at them, and you can't run away. So yeah, that's something to note as either a strategy to defeat it, or as something to watch out for. So yeah, vertical stabilizers. Then I would say enhanced tracks, just because enhanced tracks, and then your choice of the last two, whatever the hell those are. So overall, it's a very good tank. It's a bit sluggish, it's gigantic, but it has a very good gun, and it's overall just a decent enough tank. It's got very quick turret traverse, and yeah, again, the 80mm autocannon is just a very good gun. So yeah, that is the Predator. I'll thank you for watching, and goodbye.